Let me take you back for a moment. It's a snowy afternoon, somewhere around 1958. The kind where the world feels quiet and the cold sneaks in through the old window frames. Inside, someone's carving out apples, the scent of cinnamon rising as raisins soak gently in warm rum or apple juice. Baked apples, simple, humble, wonderfully cozy. The kind of treat families made when winter afternoons felt long and peaceful. And today, we're bringing that little moment of mid-century comfort back to life. Welcome to Apaulo Diner. Hello my friends and fellow Apollonians, welcome back to Apaulo Diner. I'm your host Apollo Jupiter, and today we're making a true winter classic. Vintage style baked apples. The so-called Bratapfel has been around for centuries, but in the 40s and 50s became a beloved afternoon treat, especially in Germany, often served with vanilla sauce and a cup of coffee, long before it appeared as a restaurant dessert. So let's recreate that bit of old-fashioned winter magic together. Let's get started! First up, we'll get our apples ready and bring that warm, nostalgic filling to life. Alright, let's talk apples. We need 4 large baking apples today. Traditionally that meant Boskop, but Cox Orange, Berlepsch or even Braeburn work beautifully too. The main thing is this: they should hold their shape in the oven. If the apple is too soft, you don't get a baked apple, you get a sweet little landslide on your baking tray. Tasty, sure, but not exactly vintage elegance. So once we've chosen our apples, we give them a good wash. Then we remove the core, either with a proper apple corer if you have one, or with a good old small knife. If you're using a knife, just work your way around the core slowly so you end up with a nice tunnel in the middle. And if you're using an apple corer, when you reach the very bottom, simply cut off that last little plug of the core and push it right back into the apple. Instant vintage engineering, a perfect little seal. We want a solid little floor at the bottom so the filling stays inside the apple, not plotting its escape underneath. Now while our apples wait patiently, we put together the filling. We start with 40 to 60 grams or about 3 to 4 tablespoons of raisins. I like to give them a quick chop. It helps them soak up more flavor and it makes them easier to pack into the apples. Whole raisins tend to act like little divas. They take up space and refuse to sit nicely. Chopped ones behave, blend in and make every bite feel balanced. Next we soak them in 2 to 3 tablespoons of rum or apple or orange juice if you want it alcohol-free. If you happen to have Stroh 80 at home, that one brings a very special kind of winter flavor with it. It's bold, unmistakable, and a classic in many old German and Austrian winter recipes. But any good dark rum works beautifully here. Use whatever you enjoy. Let the raisins sit for at least 20 minutes. Think of it as the little warm-up act before the big performance. Now for the crunch. We add 40 to 60 grams or about 1/3 to half a cup of chopped almonds or hazelnuts. Both show up in vintage recipes depending on the region and both taste fantastic. Now for the sweetness. 4 teaspoons of sugar and 1 to 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Give everything a good mix. You'll notice the kitchen already starting to smell like a cozy winter evening by the fireplace. That's the magic of cinnamon. It travels faster than you can stir. By the way, these slightly flexible measurements simply depend on how large your apples are. Bigger apples can handle a bit more filling, smaller ones need a lighter touch. And if you end up with a little extra filling, don't worry, it tastes wonderful on its own. A tiny little snack before the main event. Once everything is well combined, we are ready to bring this fragrant filling to our apples. We take each apple and gently spoon the mixture inside. Don't be afraid to press it down just a little so the apples are nicely filled from top to bottom. This isn't a soufflé. It won't complain. As mentioned, if your apples are on the larger side, you might use up the whole filling. Smaller ones will leave you with a spoonful or two to enjoy on the side. Either way, it all works out beautifully. And if a bit of the filling tries to peek out at the top, that's perfectly fine. It just means your apple is excited about the oven. Once the apples are filled, we give each one a tiny pat of butter on top, about half a teaspoon or just a small knob. As the apples bake, that butter melts down into the filling and adds a lovely richness. It's a small detail, but in vintage recipes, those little touches matter. Now we transfer the apples into a baking dish. If there's any leftover rum or juice from soaking the raisins, drizzle it right over the apples. It adds moisture, flavor, and just a bit of shine once they bake. Now that our apples are ready, we can move on to the easy part, letting the oven do the work. We preheat it to 180 to 200 degrees Celsius or about 350 to 390 degrees Fahrenheit. Different apples behave a little differently, so that temperature range gives us some flexibility. And if you're unsure where to land, the middle ground is always a good choice. In they go, onto the middle rack. And we let them bake for about 30 to 35 minutes. You'll notice that the skins start to crack as they heat up. And that's exactly what we want. Back then, that cracked skin was a sign of a good baked apple, not a mistake. As they bake, the butter melts down, the raisins plump up, and the cinnamon does its magic. The filling bubbles just a little at the top. You're nearly there. Time to get them out. Ah, that smell. That's when you know good times have officially entered the kitchen. Now comes my favorite part, serving these beauties. The classic way, especially in the 40s and 50s, was with a thin vanilla sauce. Not the thick pudding style sauce we often use today, but something lighter, almost pourable. If you've seen my sweet yeast buns video, you already know that delicious velvety vanilla sauce. It's an older video of mine, but that sauce is unforgettable. Just make it with a little more milk to keep it thinner. That brings it much closer to the vintage style. We simply spoon it over the warm apples and let it run down the sides. It looks beautiful, it tastes cozy, and it brings that true mid-century feeling to the plate. Of course, variations existed as well. Unsweetened whipped cream was very common, especially when people wanted something a bit lighter. And some households even pressed a single clove into the apple peel for extra fragrance. Just remember, the clove is for the aroma, not for chewing, unless you want to surprise your dentist tomorrow. But for this video, we'll stick with the vanilla sauce. It's simple, it's classic, and it turns a humble baked apple into a little feel-good moment. Wonderful. And there they are, our vintage style baked apples, warm, fragrant, and straight out of a mid-century winter afternoon. Thank you so much for spending this cozy moment with me, my dear friends and fellow Bolognians. I hope these apples bring as much warmth to your home as they once did in those old 40s and 50s kitchens. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe, and maybe share it with someone who loves a bit of old-fashioned comfort. And if you'd like to explore more seasonal classics, have a look at my other winter recipes. They pair beautifully with a warm baked apple on a cold evening. May your days be warm and joyful. Take good care, enjoy the season, have a wonderful start into the new year, and I'll see you soon in the next video.